Today is Monday, October 7th. We're talking about the one-year mark since Hamas attacked Israel and where things stand now. And we've got the latest from the campaign trail. Former President Trump went back to the site of the assassination attempt in July, and Vice President Harris begins a media blitz. Also, Florida gets ready for another major hurricane while it's still cleaning up from the last one. Plus, the impact from the dockworkers strike even after it ended. Some good signs from the newest jobs report. And Joker 2 underperforms at the box office. Those stories and even more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, we start today marking 1 year since Hamas attacked southern Israel. It was the day Hamas carried out a terrorist attack, killing roughly 1,200 people and taking more than 250 hostage. Thousands more were displaced. It was the deadliest attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust. Israel quickly retaliated, and there's now a wider conflict that's brought death and destruction across the Middle East. The Hamas-run health authority says Israel's counterattacks and continued war in Gaza have killed more than 40,000 Palestinians. It's also left the Gaza Strip in ruins and displaced almost all 2 million people living there, though most still can't leave the territory. More recently, Israel has turned its attention to Hezbollah, who began striking Israel 1 year ago in solidarity with Hamas. Both are U.S.-designated terrorist groups backed by Iran. Just last month, Israel escalated its retaliation against Hezbollah. It continues to hit targets in Beirut and across Lebanon and has launched a ground operation. Lebanese health officials say more than 1,900 people have been killed in the country. More than 1 million Lebanese have reportedly fled their homes. Now, Iran itself has gotten more involved. It launched nearly 200 missiles at Israel for killing Hezbollah's leader, and Israel has since promised to hit back hard, with Iran saying it, too, could carry out additional attacks. This morning, Israelis held vigils and somber ceremonies to mark the one-year anniversary of the Hamas attack and honor its victims. Around the world, both pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian protests are marking the day and its aftermath. Vice President Kamala Harris will discuss the Middle East, the economy, immigration, and more in an interview with CBS's 60 Minutes that airs tonight. Harris mostly avoided interviews as her campaign began, but it seems a media blitz is kicking off this week. She was already on the podcast Call Her Daddy, where she talked about several issues and hit back at Republican references to her not having biological children, saying it's mean-spirited, that her stepchildren are her children, and it's not the 1950s anymore. She has several more appearances scheduled this week, from ABC's The View to Howard Stern's satellite radio program to The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. She also continues to hold rallies in swing states. Former President Trump had also originally agreed to do a 60 Minutes interview, but CBS said he backed out. Trump pushed back, saying they owe him an apology for the last time he was on the broadcast, since he says they were caught lying about Hunter Biden's laptop back in 2020. Over the weekend, Trump returned to Butler, Pennsylvania, where he survived an assassination attempt back in July. He began with a somber tone, featuring survivors of the shooting and tributes to the victims and first responders. Billionaire supporter Elon Musk literally jumped on stage to Trump's side, telling the crowd there's no truer test than courage under fire, and calling the election a must-win situation. During his speech, though, Trump suggested, with no evidence to support it, that Democrats may have been responsible for the attempted assassination. Trump also continues to rally in swing states, and there's now less than 1 month until Election Day. The U.S. government's top disaster relief official said this weekend false claims and conspiracy theories about the federal response to Hurricane Helene are demoralizing aid workers and creating fear in people who need recovery assistance. She told ABC News it's, quote, ridiculous and just plain false, and said it's a shame some are putting politics ahead of helping people. Some Republicans, including former President Trump, have highlighted false claims like that Democrats are spending relief money on immigrants. Now, some have pushed back against the FEMA director's latest comment, saying she's playing the victim while others are truly suffering. To be clear, while FEMA does provide immigration-related aid, that's separate from disaster relief, and it's in a completely different fund. FEMA said this weekend federal assistance provided to Helene survivors so far has topped $137 million. The U.S. Department of Transportation also released $100 million in emergency funds for North Carolina to rebuild its roads and bridges. Hundreds of roads across western North Carolina are still closed, and air traffic over the area has been busy as teams look for survivors. There are still a couple 100,000 people across the Southeast without power, and the death toll from Hurricane Helene, which left a massive path of destruction across 6 states, has now surpassed 230 people. Well, it's been a week and a half since Hurricane Helene made landfall on Florida's west coast, and now the same region is bracing for another potentially devastating storm. What is now Tropical Storm Milton formed in the Gulf of Mexico over the weekend. It has the potential to become a major hurricane by late today and could hit Florida's west coast by midweek, potentially as a Category 3. Forecasts still vary at this point, but the most likely path suggests Milton could make landfall in the Tampa Bay area, which is still cleaning up from Helene. And then Milton could move across central Florida. If that happens, it would at least spare other southern states ravaged by Helene. But Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis is telling people in his state to start preparing now, saying regardless exactly where this next storm hits, Florida will be impacted. The U.S. Supreme Court is back in action. The new term begins today and will last through June of next year. It comes after some major and controversial decisions from the High Court over the summer on guns, a widely used abortion pill, the power of federal agencies, presidential immunity, and more. This term is looking a bit quieter so far, but still will involve some hot-button cases with questions like, can states prevent transgender minors from getting certain medical treatments? Can the Biden administration regulate homemade so-called ghost guns in the same way as other firearms? Do age verification requirements to protect minors from online pornography violate the First Amendment rights of adults? Then there's the question of whether there will be new cases after Election Day over things like counting ballots and voting access. So, stay tuned. All right, we have more news for you still ahead, from the latest jobs report to the top movie at the box office and much more. But first, a quick break for our sponsor, Shopify. When you think about businesses that are really successful and well-known, there's usually a few things there: a great product or service, a cool brand, and excellent marketing. And what you may not realize is how much the business behind the business matters too. One key thing: making selling and buying simple. For millions of businesses, they're able to do that thanks to Shopify. And I know as a customer that's used Shopify at checkout, it's such a smooth experience. So I'm ready to buy again and again. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. In fact, it's home to the #1 checkout on the planet. So if you're growing your business, you better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout brands like Allbirds, Skims, Mattel, Heinz, and many more use. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/newsworthy, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/newsworthy to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to the news. A new employment report shows the economy is in good shape. Businesses added more than 250,000 jobs last month, which was way more than expected. The unemployment rate was also down slightly, while wages went up. On top of that, consumer spending was holding up and inflation continues to tick down. The good news means the Federal Reserve may slow down the pace of interest rate cuts. Economists say America is now on track for a so-called soft landing, where the country emerges from a time of high inflation without entering a full-blown recession. So stay tuned. Even though the major strike along East and Gulf Coast ports last week only lasted 3 days and is not expected to have a major impact on the economy, it seems it still could take weeks to clear the backlog of cargo. Reports say more than 50 ships were anchored offshore during the strike, unable to unload their containers with goods coming into the U.S., and new ships continue to arrive. So analysts expect it to take 2 to 3 weeks for shipments to get back on track, with crews working weekends to make up for the delays. But again, experts say there likely won't be lasting economic impacts, and it should not affect holiday shopping. But remember, the dispute between dockworkers and the ports isn't completely over. They've agreed to keep the current contract through at least January 15th with promises of worker pay raises. But other issues like automation and job security are still being worked out. So stay tuned to see whether there could be another strike early next year. Google is making major changes to the way people search the internet and leaning into artificial intelligence to do it. One of the new features, you can use Google Lens to search a video and even ask questions about the video using your voice. The example Google gave is, say you're at an aquarium and are curious about the fish you see swimming in a tank. You can open the Google Lens app, record a video while you ask a question, and Google's Gemini AI tool will answer. Changes are also coming to the search results page. Instead of looking like a list of links, Google's AI tools will now group results into clusters based on their format and how they respond to a search. Videos and forums like Reddit and Quora will be pushed to the top of results pages as well when AI overviews aren't available. Well, these updates will first appear on mobile before they get rolled out on a wider scale. It's being called a box office shocker. The Joker sequel was supposed to be a hit, but it's apparently bombed at the box office in its opening weekend. Even though Joker Folie à Deux was still the top movie over the weekend, it brought in $40 million domestically, which was far below its expected total of $50 to $60 million. The sequel cost almost $200 million to make. It also trails way behind the Joker movie that came out back in 2019, which opened with nearly $100 million in North America and finished its theatrical run by making more than $1 billion worldwide. The Joker 2 did do better globally. Industry experts point to early audience scores as the main reason for the movie's failure so far. The Joker sequel is the first comic book movie to get a D grade from CinemaScore, which compiles audience reactions to movies. That said, critics still expect the movie's lead actors, Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga, to compete for Oscar nominations with their performances. Well, that's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, this episode is brought to you by Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. As I've been using it, I've learned so much about how my metabolism and body works, and I love how easy and fun Lumen is to use. Again, all you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll see what's going on with your metabolism. Then on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you get real-time data and recommendations. Your metabolism is actually your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into fuel that keeps you going. This is the type of technology that used to only be available to top athletes in clinics, but now Lumen makes lab-level metabolic testing accessible. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/newsworthy to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/newsworthy for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Okay, now back to Money Monday. So more and more Americans are relying on bonuses. The Wall Street Journal reports that American companies are increasingly making compensation dependent on hitting performance targets. Of course, this is not a new concept. Bonuses are already standard practice for salespeople. The more someone sells, the more they get paid. But other industries have started adopting bonuses as a way to improve productivity and keep their own payrolls down. Marketers, software developers, accountants, and HR professionals are all seeing their compensation tied to specific benchmarks. Some employees like it. They see it as a way to make more money than they could otherwise, to pad their earnings and push themselves in the workplace. But not every worker feels that way. There's unpredictability and inconsistency with incentive-based pay, since it usually means a lower base salary. Whether or not employees prefer performance-based compensation depends mostly on how they're structured. Bonuses that are attainable and give workers a chance to have their work influence the results are more likely to be popular. But bonuses with difficult-to-reach targets or ones that are discretionary, left up to management, may prove to be a barrier to recruiting and retaining talent. That said, even with the increasing number of employees getting this type of pay, the vast majority of the workforce still makes the same amount every payday. All right, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back with even more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.